And maybe this one is a little bit more spooky than the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. So you can bring, there are going to be haunted houses here. They're not going to be Halloween Horror Night haunted houses, but they are going to be Simpsons-inspired haunted houses.
Hello, my name is Chris.
I'm Eddie.
And we, as always, are not too old to talk about, and experience the things we love, and neither are you. And two of the things that I love the most, in about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now or something like that,
Sure.
kind of joined forces in a way that I didn't expect, but now, such is life, things may be changing. So there are very few things, we'll just dive right into this, right? There are very few things in this world that I love as much as theme parks and The Simpsons.
Sure.
And with Universal Studios Orlando, and I don't know, did Hollywood do this as well?
The rumor is both.
Okay, so at least the one in Orlando that I've been to, about 10 years ago now, at least 2017, I think it was around that time, The Simpsons. It was a controversial ad. It took over the part of Universal Studios Orlando that had once been occupied by Jaws.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, right? They got that right, but it's in the land.
So
it's in
Jaws is Harry Potter.
Oh,
Diagon Alley.
I understand. So it did take over an extremely popular ride, though, in Back to the Future. And now that the Back to the Future, the guts of that simulator experience are now you going through Springfield in a wacky way.
It's actually very funny. They didn't change any of the ride stuff.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah,
it's the same ride, just a different video.
Exactly right. So, what I remember being a kid, I used to love the Back to the Future ride at Universal, and there was a scene where there's a dinosaur at one point.
Yeah, right.
You're right. All of the muscle memory of the ride is the same. It's just a new screen with all right, we're not going to redo the ride. So at 23 seconds, you got to drop.
Yeah, right.
And in a minute 05, you got to go up.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Them's the rules. I don't hate it. It's just really herky-jerky.
Yeah, it's definitely shown its age. It is an opening day attraction for Universal Studios Florida. I believe it's not an opening day attraction for Hollywood, but it opened very soon after. And then, the guts are the same.
I also remember having just a more fun experience being in the DeLorean than the mechanism that they're in for The Simpsons.
Yeah.
But the point is, Universal Studios is part of this really interesting change over the last decade or so. The things at Universal Studios that they just don't own anymore, or even really have, it feels almost strange how much representation is in the park, right?
Correct.
Because between Marvel and The Simpsons, there's a huge influence of those IPs in Universal Studios. And, 3-4 years ago now, Disney acquired 20th Century Fox. In doing so, they obviously bought out Marvel. Yeah. And so we've talked about before, if you want to give the Cliff Notes version of the Marvel representation in the Mississippi River.
Yeah, so basically what happened is that back in the 90s, Marvel was going bankrupt. So they sold all of the rights off to everything, right? Trying to just make cash to stay afloat. One of the things they sold was the theme park rights east of the Mississippi to Universal Studios Orlando. So at Universal Islands of Adventure, there is a themed land for the Marvel characters. They are all the comic book and cartoon representation from basically 2003-ish back. So the latest representation that you would see are X-Men characters from the show Wolverine and the X-Men, which I believe, again, was from 2003. And so because of that, that's why Disney is not able to put anything that is represented in that park in any of their existing theme parks in Disney World. But they're able to do it in Disneyland because they're able to use the MCU because the rights don't go there.
And Guardians of the Galaxy is in no way represented at Universal Orlando, and that's why they're able to theme a ride off it. So for people asking why they can't have the flipping Spider-Man guy, I don't mean flipping, the
animatronic Spider-Man that flips.
Exactly, is because he is represented at Universal Orlando.
Yeah.
The Guardians of the Galaxy are not, and so that's why Cosmic Rewind exists. One of the IPs that exists in Universal is The Simpsons as well. They really did like a downtown Springfield. For anybody that hasn't been to Universal Orlando ever or in a while, it's basically a condensed version of Springfield, where there's a Quickie Mart, there's the comic book shop, you can get a Krusty Burger, you can go to Cletus's for fried chicken. They have a taco stand with the Bumblebee Man. There's statues of Chief Wiggum.
Moe's is there.
Moe's Tavern is there, where you can get a flaming Moe. And so it's neat, it's condensed, and it feels like, as a big Simpsons fan, it's like, it's cool that it's here, and I'd rather it exist than not at all. But to me, it's never been like this, oh man, I'm in Florida, I've got to get to Springfield during this trip. Like, I went to Universal Studios as recently as February of this year, 2024. We went to Springfield, and it was fun because it's neat to look at the stuff you like, but there's not a ton there, and the ride is underwhelming. And but the reason that we're doing this show and talking about Springfield specifically is it is now a property that, again, you almost feel like you're advertising for the other team, because they don't have a stake in it financially anymore. And so it's really one of those things where every time you sell a shirt, you're giving Disney a little money. You don't have The Simpsons anymore, and so it's expected to change. So I got to ask you two things. What would you like to see go where The Simpsons is, and do you see Disney World embracing The Simpsons if the change is made?
Yeah, I have to imagine. So Universal's in an incredibly interesting place right now, right? With the impending opening of Epic Universe, they will have a lot more leeway to change things that need to be changed in their two existing theme parks right now, because, like we just mentioned, Marvel's over at Islands of Adventure, and we have The Simpsons over at Universal Studios Orlando. And so those two are both generating money for Disney, basically. There are shirts that you can buy in Superhero Island that are just Marvel t-shirts. And so it's in their best interest to move on. They haven't had the ability to move on because they haven't really had the IPs to be able to move on. So because they've had to rely on third-party IPs so often. So there's already rumors. Let's see, what can I say that I kind of... All right. So there are a lot of things over at Universal Studios Japan that are going to be moving over here. There is obviously Super Nintendo World moving into Epic Universe.
Sure.
There's also going to be a Legend of Zelda attraction moving into what used to be Poseidon's Fury. I wouldn't be surprised if another ride gets brought over. If the rumors are to be believed, Pokemon is coming to the Florida parks.
I can believe that.
You put them in one or two of those spots, either Superhero Island or The Simpsons, because you don't own either of them anymore. But having this fresh new IP freshens up that park and attendance to that park. I believe that the Spider-Man attraction will go away first, and it will be replaced with a Pokemon ride because there'll be a little bit more of a one-to-one. The Spider-Man ride in Universal Japan has already closed, so I wouldn't be surprised if whatever was designed for that space was to move over to here.
Right, and you can't ever predict the future, right? And I'm not going to pretend that I know who owns what in this like grand scheme of capitalist umbrella where it feels like, if you really break it down, like, there's really only like 5 companies in the world now, you know what I mean? Because everything owns everything. But so I'll give you an example. As somebody who was there in February, there is a coming soon, and you can see it starting, where they're going to be adding Shrek to Universal.
So that's open.
Right? Perfect. There we go. So again, you can't predict the future. I don't know if Disney one day will own DreamWorks, and then I'm just advertising for you again.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? But what Universal, like you said, would be wise to do is take things like Shrek and embrace the stuff that, listen, I just don't have it anymore. And while I don't know if there'll be a zero Marvel presence anytime in the next decade or so, if you're going to start changing anything, that's what you change, because it's fun and people go here, and I get it, and it's almost this little nah because it's not at Disney World, and if your kid does love Spider-Man or the Incredible Hulk or something, or Captain America, this is where you have to go still. But again, it just sort of feels like you don't have The Simpsons anymore. The Simpsons are on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
if you're going to begin to embrace newer IPs like Shrek,
Yeah.
it might not be a bad idea to not just expand the existing land, but take what's there and make it something new. And I want to ask you this now. Because, again, The Simpsons is on Disney Plus, they do own 20th Century Fox. They do own The Simpsons, which is still on the air somehow.
Sure.
My favorite thing of all time, and so beloved. Do you think that they would ever add The Simpsons to Walt Disney World or Disneyland?
I do. I think they would. I think that there is a cultural photo op between Mickey Mouse and Homer Simpson that handshake would be pretty weird and cool to see.
Sure thing.
I think that while Disney is kind of doing their own thing comparatively to what Universal's doing, we talked about it before, they're in this expansion mode of expanding their current properties. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Simpsons representation in Hollywood Studios as they try to continue to revamp that park.
Sure.
I think that with Indiana Jones moving over to Animal Kingdom, I think that the Indiana Jones stunt spectacular becomes expendable. So that is a large area to be able to expand.
And prime, too. You know what? I went in February and we went in June. And what surprises me every time is I don't know where I thought Indiana Jones was, but I didn't remember it just being like next to the Chinese theater, like prime
right there.
Real estate. Like for some reason I thought I had it like back where like the backlot tour. It's not. And one thing you got to realize with Indiana Jones is it's not that it's not beloved, but it's only getting less and less relevant. Like the newer indie movies didn't do anything to reinvigorate like a new generation of fans.
Yeah.
And so what I'll say is somebody who is a gigantic Simpsons fan, like huge, right? What Matt Groening had said a long time ago was that he had always wanted The Simpsons to end with a movie. So I remember when The Simpsons movie came out, me and my friend, I had a really good friend named Johnny who liked The Simpsons just as much as me. And I remember we kind of thought like, this is probably their way of saying we're wrapping up soon. Right? Yeah. It's been on so long.
That's what everybody thought.
That movie came out in 2007, everybody. Yeah. And that show is still on the air. It's been on like as long since as it was before.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, that's real. But what I'll say to you again as somebody who loves it is, I don't know how relevant The Simpsons is right now.
Correct.
To build something. So like what I would equate it to is something that we've talked off the air about maybe it replacing. I'm not telling you that the Muppets aren't beloved and I'm not calling them irrelevant, right? But what I would tell you is like, would I build a new Muppets thing now? No. Would I build a new Simpsons thing now? I don't know.
So the thing with The Simpsons, so it's very interesting because the Monsters Incorporated they're getting a land. They're getting a full-on land over in Hollywood Studios. They haven't said somewhere. I think that this is the perfect reason to like re-theme, and not even just re-theme, but knock down. All right, buddy, come on.
Yeah, Tommy.
The cat's coming.
Tommy.
Eventually he'll hop up. No, all right, chicken. But Monsters Inc., they're getting their own land. And so I think it's going to replace Rock and Roller Coaster.
Really?
Yeah, because Aerosmith is less relevant. If you are going,
it's such an easy one to just do the Goofy movie. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
it is.
Whatever. That's a different show.
Yeah. Yes, I have a perfect way to like literally not change anything, but just like the soundtrack in the opening theater.
You're trying to get to the Powerline concert, and the song everybody likes.
You rotate it daily, and you just have different Disney artists that are the video and the music you watch. So it's not as sophisticated as Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy is like every ride, and you'd have to sync, like you can't rotate that video.
Right.
So it'd have to be daily. But one day is Powerline, and you're going to the Powerline concert, and then one day is the Gazelle concert from Zootopia, because she's also on G-Force Records,
right.
and then Four Town from Turning Red.
That's fine.
And you just rotate through.
But you're right though. That's just smell like it feels the same. Where It's like, is Monsters Inc. so relevant right now?
Yeah.
We should be building new things on that IP right now.
And so
it almost feels like Inside Out is more relevant.
That's very true. I think that having The Simpsons represented in Disney World might not be a bad idea. I also don't think it necessarily needs to be a theme park attraction.
Yeah, because I don't think it needs to be the scope of Galaxy's Edge or Toy Story Land.
I think what you could do is you could get away with literally opening Moe's Tavern.
Okay.
Like if you go to Disney Springs, because there aren't children that are like hunkering for The Simpsons, but if you put a Simpsons meet and greet in there, there's a restaurant, and now the adults are gonna go.
You're right, or just like you're right. Like what I wouldn't do is build Springfield.
Yeah.
Right, because I just don't think that there's an appeal big enough. Right, like there are folks like me that would make that pilgrimage at least once. Right, with Galaxy's Edge, there's such a diehard, deep in the wool Star Wars base. They might do this trip once a year for that, where The Simpsons doesn't have, I don't think, that level of fandom anymore.
Also, the ride for Star Wars is an attraction, right? So even if you don't necessarily appreciate it the way our friend Dylan appreciates it, right? For Galaxy's Edge, you can be a surface level Star Wars fan and really enjoy Smuggler's Run and really enjoy Rise of the Resistance. Like, those are still awesome theme park rides.
Yeah.
So your surface level knowledge of Star Wars is more than enough. There's not a theme park level of Simpsons-ness.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't an adventure quality to it.
It's just almost more fun if they were now people that can be here walking around.
Yeah.
Like, you might see Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Just like, it took me several trips before I got used to just seeing stormtroopers walking around MGM.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And now that's the new normal. And it's just like, maybe if Homer's here, you're right. You got to do something. You have to build something, whether it's Moe's.
I think it's a Disney Springs thing. I think you just build a restaurant that you can meet the Simpsons at, because
I think you have to do that on property. Disney Springs just doesn't feel like that's where they'd stick the only place you could see them. You know what I mean? So I
just don't, without having to build something crazy.
Yeah.
That's the only place, unless they're going to meet at the America Pavilion in Epcot.
No, that would, first of all, that would make me so happy if they replaced Sam Eagle as Homer Simpson is the new face of the United States, which he actually really is, would be terrific. I feel like what you do is you stick something around the unfinished portion of MGM that is where the Muppets are. The Muppets are just at the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it feels like you should be able to keep walking and you can't. But that's my only thing with The Simpsons. I don't want them to ever go away. I've said this before, but it's weird. I haven't watched Sundays at 8 used to be a sacred time in this country. That's when The Simpsons is on. A new episode of The Simpsons is on. This is the time of year where they're going to start doing the Treehouse of Horror, which used to be just must-see television for me, for a lot of people. And I haven't watched The Simpsons Sunday night at 8 o'clock in well over a decade. But I also don't want it to go away.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because it's this weird, amazing constant. One day, sooner than later, they're going to announce the final season of The Simpsons. And it's somehow going to be something I haven't watched in 15 years.
It's going to be devastating.
And hurt. You know what I mean? And so I don't want them to just go away. I feel like Universal, to our earlier conversation, they just feel kind of out of place, and nothing there is irreplaceable. Nothing there is sacred, and nothing there is irreplaceable. It's a neat little thing, and what Universal kind of is different than Disney in this regard is you just sort of walk through Universal's areas. You just sort of walk through Universal Studios. You've got to get out of here. I love you so much, but you got to get out of here.
That was Tommy, everybody.
That's Tommy. And he heard me talking to somebody other than him way long enough. That's not acceptable. You just sort of walk through, and it's like, well, now I'm here. Now I'm here. Now I'm here. I just got off the Harry Potter bus, and now I'm in Springfield, and now there's monsters, and now there's, you know what I mean? And there's nothing there that feels like it's got to be there. And at the same time, though, I do think that Disney would be smart to have representation, because there are such a cultish following of that show, like people like me. But what are we going to like? You don't need to build Springfield.
Sure,
but
I think a restaurant somewhere is your most ideal thing.
I think what you do is you learn from, like, Disney's doing a lot of like new, right?
Yeah.
And what I think you do is you can actually have this really iconic video game called The Simpsons Hit and Run.
Sure.
And what I think you do is
Simpsons Grand Theft Auto.
Right, it is. And what this is, I know, thinking outside the box here, but the Back to the Future reskin is what it used to be in Back to the Future was you were in the DeLorean and you were just going to obviously
you had to chase Biff,
and then this time you're in like some sort of vehicle, but it goes.
You're on a roller coaster.
That's what it is.
And Sideshow Bob has basically hijacked it.
And what you could do, which is sort of like a little thumb in Universal's eye, who's getting a little attention lately, is you now build the actual best simulator of sitting in a ride and going through, like you do Star Tours, but you do it with The Simpsons. You do it in that hit and run wacky taxi going through Springfield kind of way, and have it be the state of the art, get in a thing and feel like you're going.
I would love for them to, because I don't think that they're going to warrant a theme park attraction. I believe that they are warranted of a representation, but not necessarily a ride. And I think another fun representation might be, because Treehouse of Horror is such a fun thing that they do, maybe they host a Halloween party at Hollywood Studios, and maybe this one is a little bit more spooky than the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party. So you can bring, there are going to be haunted houses here. They're not going to be Halloween Horror Night haunted houses, but they are going to be Simpsons-inspired haunted houses.
That's a great idea.
And so something like that is representation, because I do have to kind of consider the age of the fan base.
Right.
And that fan base is going to like a spooky, kitschy Halloween thing more so than they would necessarily like gravitate towards a dark ride.
Also, you're right. That's a great idea. You meet in the middle. So like Disney's Halloween party is just not at all scary and not intended to be, right? Universal's is like intense.
Yes.
And at MGM, The Simpsons hosts the one right in the middle.
Yeah.
Right?
Where it's for those adventurous teens.
What it is what they're going to say is, we recommend 12 and up.
Perfect.
We recommend you be 12 and up to come here. That's, you know what I mean? We're not going to hold you at the door here. But we recommend 12 and up.
Yes.
Which is that's a good idea, right in the middle. Also, stupid easy things to do, like if you wanted to do MGM, they're a cartoon. You host an animating class. You add them to the animation part of Disney. They are a cartoon. There's a lot there.
You open up at the Art of Animation, another set of suites from The Simpsons.
And how popular would that be? Seriously. You know what I mean?
But that's the type of stuff I'm talking about is like, I don't think that there is ever going to be a world where we're going to sit in a boat and there's going to be like Simpsons like dark ride. I just don't think we live in that world. But I do think we do live in a world where it's like, if they did another, like, I'm going to call them the Hulu part of the family, but if they did like the Hulu part of Disney Plus, and like The Simpsons are a part of that, maybe Futurama gets a little bit of a nod as well, just because it's the same guy.
Absolutely, yeah, it is Matt Groening. That's what my hope would be, is that just like in general, it's so funny. Like, again, I went to Springfield in February. And I had it was fine. It's again, you're surrounded by your favorite stuff. Who nobody frowns in Springfield, right? Mm-hmm. But if it went away tomorrow, my life would be no different. But I'd be like, but it should be somewhere. And that's the same thing. It's so funny. It's the same vibe I have with the show. My life will be no different one day when they're like, this thing you haven't watched in 20 years, we're not going to make it anymore. And I'll just be like, what? As if we're in season 5 of Breaking Bad. You know what I mean? And I'll just be like, I can't believe it. But just to we'll wrap this up with just the bigger part of the conversation of like Universal Studios. It is sort of funny how the whole park, shy of some, certain things that they own, but how much of that park is built infrastructure that is also so variable. Like, what if J.K. Rowling's contract runs up?
So J.K. Rowling's contract, do you know about this?
I don't.
She can walk into any of the theme parks at any of the Universal properties, and if she doesn't like it, she can just pull the license.
And by not liking it, maybe they're being nice to a trans person.
Yes, that's quite possible.
She's like, we're moving to Disney.
Yeah.
But like, that's incredible because, like, again, there's so much money that she is making in passive income. She's doing nothing but signing contracts that says you're doing a good job and raking in so much money that why would you want to mess with that? Again, she seems like she's not a great person. Maybe that's the reason. Yeah. But my point being, like, Disney World, nobody can come and be like, hey, Goofy? We're taking Goofy back.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Right. Like, but meanwhile, can you imagine the damage if you had to pull the Harry Potter IP? The billions it would cost to redo 2 places and a train system that gets you there.
3, because it's over in Hollywood as well.
Right, and I'm talking about just Orlando alone.
Yes,
right?
Having to retheme both of those areas,
and the train that gets you there, and how much revenue is probably based on people going for Harry Potter and then doing the other stuff because I'm here for Harry Potter, but let's make a day of it. And you don't even really own that.
Yes, that's the craziest part, is that it is a Warner Brothers movie, so you don't own the movie rights. You just own the theme park rights.
Do you know if Universal owns DreamWorks?
Yes.
Okay, good.
They own DreamWorks, and that's been their shift. Their shift has been 2 movies that they own.
They should
right?
be. And Shrek is a big enough
because Nintendo is never going to be purchased, right? Like,
Nintendo won't license to Funko.
Yeah,
because they want to make their own toys.
Yes, they want to get you to buy the amiibos. No, there is no way that, because they are on the same level. Nintendo, Disney, Comcast. Same level, right?
Yes,
and
they are the Apple of video games.
Yeah, so there's no way that they're ever going to do that. So Universal locked in real tight with. They're also making the movies, Super Mario. Their partnership rock solid. So I can't imagine a world where all of a sudden Nintendo jumped ship to Disney.
Disney also doesn't want to do that.
No.
Like, Disney, I know that Disney bid on Harry Potter because who wouldn't? But they really would rather be like, I own Star Wars, then I'll build it.
Disney at this point will purchase it from J.K. Rowling and or never have anything to do with it.
Right. And they probably are more inclined to not
do anything with it.
Right.
Mostly because they don't need to.
And because what they're gonna do is it's going to take from the day they announce that they bought it to when the park is complete will be 5 years minimum.
Yeah, right.
Right. Probably closer to a decade from like, hey, we did it to come on in.
Yeah, right.
And in that decade, people get older, things change, and there's so many people that have done Harry, but not that Harry Potter World wouldn't open to acclaim, but there had never been a Star Wars theme park before.
Yeah, right.
And you were the first.
And now Universal has 3.
And what are you going to do so much better than them? That it's going to be worth this relationship, and you know what I mean. Like,
and so the only thing, so I do like that they're shifting away from properties that they don't own. They build the Velocicoaster because Jurassic Park is so big for them. When you look at Epic Universe and the properties that they decided to invest in, Nintendo, obviously. Duh. Yeah. But then having a Monsters Land, embracing that end of your fan base. A lot of their marketing over the last 10 years has been a lot of like, this is the grown-up vacation.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's
they are a thrill ride place.
Yeah, that's great. That is a great way to market yourself. And so embracing the Horror Nights end of people with the Monsters universe is going to be a great option. How to Train Your Dragon is going to be huge. I wouldn't be shocked if you see something like that move into where the Simpsons are. And then internationally, I know I'm wearing the t-shirt, but they have a show. Like Universal Japan has a One Piece show. One Piece is only getting more popular in the United States. The live action on Netflix is huge. The anime is massive. And then they're just about to release basically the condensed version of the anime in the next like year and a half. So people that are like, look at the like 1,000 episode like total and you're like, that's too much. It's like, oh no, here's the condensed version. And so it's like, I wouldn't be shocked if you saw something like that move in there. And so I'm really excited because I really, that's what I like about these theme parks, is embracing the things that you have.
What is interesting, though, is just like my final point on Universal, right? Obviously, it's interesting to see so much changing and almost this forced change.
Yeah. Because
I don't even know if Disney is putting the pressure on them to get rid of Springfield in a certain amount of time.
I think their contract is up in 2025.
And it just makes the most sense for them to do something else with the thing that I don't own anymore. Yeah. But the thing with Universal that I just think is so interesting is how they've shifted in general from like Universal used to be, come in, this is an active movie studio, you're in the movies. And I'm not telling you that obviously they just made a Mario movie, but like I think that they're so willing to go. They didn't put The Simpsons there because of The Simpsons movie. They didn't put Mario there because of the Mario movie. Yeah. And I think what they're going to be willing to do, bigger picture Pokemon, it's not because Pokemon makes movies. It's because what Pokemon is. And I think big picture Universal is just going to kind of be more willing to latch on to any IP you like, more so than just come into the movie.
Yeah.
Because there won't be much movie about Nintendo Land. It's the video games, which I think is smart, by the way.
Yeah. I also wouldn't be surprised because it seems like Universal doesn't have any fear in putting their IP in multiple parks. And so, you know, we see it with Harry Potter. There's going to be representation in all 3 parks. And then we also see it with Nintendo World right now, where the plan is obviously Epic Universe, but then that heavy rumor is, and it might be confirmed, I'm not sure at the moment, but they're going to put a Legend of Zelda attraction at Islands of Adventure.
Why not?
So how do we have some representation of Nintendo at like the OG Universal Studios? I think that you're looking at one of 2 products, 2 IPs from Nintendo that haven't been talked about or represented, and that is Star Fox and Metroid.
Yeah.
Those are the 2.
Because Donkey Kong is getting what's going to be an amazing roller coaster.
Yes.
And things are changing all over the place. And this is what happens when you rent and don't own. At any time,
It's true.
somebody might take your Jinlong place right from underneath you, but things always work out for the better.
Yeah.
My name's Chris.
I'm Eddie.
And we hope that you love The Simpsons and theme parks and pop culture and positive change and new things coming, because you're never too old to do, experience, and talk about the things that you love. Check out everything we got going on all over the web at Not Too Old to Show. And we will see you for the next one. Who knows what we'll talk about, but we'll find out together. And I'm trying to think of something catchy that The Simpsons would say at the end of an episode. Dough.
Bye, Marge.
That's classic Homer. Bye.